I think nowadays everybody gives the kids the opportunity to make the decision, but isn't it our job to help them grow and go through that discomfort? Because sometimes it just stinks, but that's life. That's never going to change. It's always going to happen. So what do? We just go home and we hide, or, oh, I don't feel well today. Oh, my stomach hurts. But then all of a sudden you're with your friends and you rally. And kids are so much more capable of what we as caretakers or parents believe and they are.
Aren't we all more capable?
We all are. Yes and yes.
Welcome back to Journey to June. I'm your host, Wendy Basilico, and we are here instigating who you were born to be. And we're always instigating by sharing soulstigators who I have met on my journey through my sport, through whatever it is in my life that I've done, but also the stuff that I do with my daughter. And I have met so many amazing young youth leaders, and today I am interviewing another amazing human that her name is Abby, and she runs her own company called Abby's Performance Academy, where my daughter does performances, and you won't want to miss this. I think she really challenges us as parents of how we trust in this. It could be performance or sport, really trusting to put our children in the hands of a leader that expects commitment. So you won't want to miss this, and she's an amazing soul that brings so much to young humans, performance creatives. Check it out. Well, thanks for coming to Journey to June. Welcome, Abby, to Journey to June. I am so stoked to have you here because not only do you have amazing energy and do amazing work in the world, but you touch my beautiful daughter and many young people that I care about. So, Abby, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me. A little nerve-wracking. I mean,
of course it is, because they were putting
never done this.
Miss Theater, director, singer, doing everything magical that I get freaked out about. Like, I can't imagine being on stage and doing the things you do. Tell me, first of all, happy first year of marriage. She just got married. So I was going to introduce you as I know you're Italian. So tell me your maiden name and your current name, because I didn't know. I was like, who's Abby? Abby's last name is what?
Yeah, nobody ever knows. That's why I go by Miss Abby.
That's right.
So it's Abby Pantalone, or if you go Pantalone, but Pantalone Chanel.
Chanel. And that is a name.
Yeah.
Chanel.
So when I met my husband now, and my sister was like, of course you find somebody with the name Chanel.
And that is true. That is true. So tell us
fashion.
A little of where you are in your life right now, obviously newly married, but what you're doing and your work that you do right now.
Oh, that's a loaded question.
Of course it is.
Yeah. So which part? Because there's so many.
So tell me about your business right now. Like I know there's so many parts in your business.
Right.
But tell me what you're up to right now in your business, the name of your business, and just tell us what you're doing currently, and then we'll get into like how you got there.
Okay. No pressure.
None. Zero.
It's Abby's Performing Arts Coaching, and it's in Abacoa. As you know, you've been there. Welcome. And what was the other question?
Just what you're up to. Like, what do you do? What are you currently doing right now in your company? Because you do so many things.
There are so many things. It's always a combination of our musicals, the prepping for camps. Tonight there's a kids' night out. So parents can, in Abacoa, they have that big food truck thing. Mm-hmm. So parents are able to drop the kids and they can enjoy food trucks, but at least they know where their kids are and they're having a good time. And we do a lot of our usual stuff, which is dancing, acting, singing, crafting, creating.
All of it.
And it's hard to pinpoint that because creation comes from many different areas.
How old is your company?
I started, 2012, I think. 2011.
So we're going on like 12-ish
Something
years.
like that. Yeah, it's been a
always
while.
in Abacoa?
Not in Abacoa. I think I've been in Abacoa 7 or 8 years. I'm really bad with math. Sorry.
That's okay.
But I started out at little places. So I started teaching at St. Clair, not teaching full time, but it was just more like a part-time job. They needed a music teacher, and that's like a little Catholic school in the area, and they're lovely people, and they were just like, would you be willing to come and take over this position? I was like, I don't even know what it is. So it was a great experience, and that's how I started, and I learned a lot about how it works when you're in a school system where you have a bunch of different, I don't know if I'm articulating this correctly, but it's just, you can't be free, right? You have a lot of,
order.
How do I say that? Order.
Maybe
it's
like
too much
planned.
order. Too much order. You have to have all these lesson plans. And so I started there, and not really. I started teaching. See, I'm super abstract. I'm going into this mode.
So let's just let that go right now. I want to know.
Let it all go.
Where did you grow up? Let's start with that. Where did you grow up?
Yeah,
and let's go back in your journey, because this is what it is, Journey to June. How did you get where you are? So obviously Italian.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you have a big family? Like, what were you always like into this singing? What kind of human were you when you were a child?
I was a very big singer, actor. I liked to perform, but I grew up in Ohio.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Okay.
Most people think I'm from New York because the family's from New York. But somehow we ended up in this little Italian town in Ohio called Youngstown. And it was a wonderful childhood growing up. It was just lovely. And the foundation was, we started in the church. Oddly enough, we're a bunch of Italians, but it was very evangelical. Because the family from New York, I don't exactly know the story about how they moved from New York to where we are, but they're all spread out now. But long and the short, I think if I'm saying this correctly, I have to think through this. They all lived in an Italian neighborhood because when they all came over from Ellis Island, right? Mm-hmm. And they lived in the neighborhood I'm not sure which one. And so all of a sudden the mob was becoming very
interesting,
big. And then my grandmother, who became, they call it saved in the evangelical world, she was like, oh gosh, we've got to get out of here. So she moved to a different neighborhood, and then some of the family stayed in New York, and then somehow we ended up migrating over to Ohio, and I don't know really what happened.
So that's so funny, because I just interviewed my great aunt of 100 years old, and it was so cool to listen to the different generations of how they how they got over here, and then what they were doing, and just listening to you, it's triggering me to be like, it's so cool to know these things.
Right.
And then, was anybody that you know of in your past family singers, or you the first one, or I'm just curious?
Well, my family was very involved in the church. So I'm not sure if it started Catholic and then it evolved into the evangelical world, but they were all singers. It was just that old Italian way where the dad was the provider, the mom provided, like, she cooked and she sang in the church. She was the community member. She was the mama of everyone. So that's kind of how I grew up.
Were you always, because I look at you and I go, she's like a little firecracker. Were you
yeah.
always that firecracker? And did
Yes.
you have siblings, or were you the only?
I have 2 siblings. And that was interesting because everybody's always like, they label everything. Are you the first, the second, the third child? But I was the first and the second child. My brother has Asperger's and Tourette syndrome. But back in the day when we were growing up, we didn't know what it was. It was like Tourette syndrome. He was just socially awkward. He didn't really know how. There were a lot of sensory issues. And then, so I was the second child, but really ended up being the first child, taking care of him. And then 6 years go by, and then my mother had my little sister, and now she's a firecracker too, but bipolar, and so I'm kind of all over the place.
You were all over the place. Anything that, when you think of being the middle, yet always leading, obviously. And obviously having two siblings that brought a different background or experience. Anything you learned from that, like when you think back to your child, like, wow, because I was around that, I became that helped me be this person.
Oh, 100%. Because it takes the focus off of myself. And as we're growing up, we're so focused on what we need, who we are, what we look like, especially in the 90s growing up. It was all, and we grew up in that time where Kate Moss was like, right? And all those like really skinny blondes were the icons. And sometimes we're like, what do we do? And so it was just a very confusing time. So you just kind of find your own in focusing on things that don't involve you, helping your brother, helping your sister become part of some kind of community. You know, my brother always struggled with that because the sensory issue is sensory overload. And being an Italian family, we're very loud people.
That's so cool, though, because I think of you and running your company and how giving you are, and you're juggling 10,000 things. It's been in your way, in your world for so long.
I guess I never thought about it that way, but yeah.
So childhood, obviously middle, living in Ohio. But did you go to college? Did you go after being a singer, or like what was your ambition when you were like out of college or in high school or something like that?
I think nowadays kids know a little bit more. They're more tracked on, oh, I must do this, X, Y, and Z. But in my day, it was more, or at least in my family, it was like, what do you want to do? And I was just, everything we did, my mom's family was in ministry. So my grandfather was a preacher, and they always, my grandmother was a singer. She plays the piano. And so the whole family, they have musical talents, whether they're the singers or the piano players. So there's a foundation there. But when I was going to pursue something, you got that side of the family. I feel like I'm sometimes two different people, right? The caretaker, the business person. Well, I guess three people. Caretaker, the business person, and then the musical artist. And so my dad said when I was going to college, what do you want to do? Blah, blah, blah. I told him. He goes, okay, I don't understand this whole music thing, because he's a businessman. Never missed any performance in my life. Give him credit. But he still said, I don't understand this after all those years, but I will support whatever you want to do. However, you're going to have to work a little harder, because if this is what you really want to do, I'm still not going to send my daughter out into the world and be a poor, starving artist.
Yes.
And that was his concern. And so he said, you're going to have 2 majors. And so that's kind of how my life started, because he was like, no. And I think that's where.
So like just anybody listening, because I have a daughter that's into theater, and like my little mom's in my head saying, it's a hard road. It's a hard road. And I'm like, we'll figure out the road. Like, I have no idea. I'm an athlete, so I have no idea what this road looks like. But it's, to me, the thing about Live Your June, it's all about knowing who you are and having a mindset to have courage to go after it, even when it's hard. And so I'm just wondering, when your dad saying that to you, which was supportive, but also like realistic. Yeah. What would you tell someone listening who is like, I have a niece who's like graduating college, going to Columbia for this field. But I think it is something in their back of their head how hard this road is. So what would you tell the listeners? What advice would you give them in that crossroad? But if a parent's worried, or knowing the journey you've taken.
I think it's more important to know who you are. And if that's the path you want to take, you can be an artist, but you also still have to learn how to market yourself, or you have to, there is a business side to it. And it sucks for artists. Like, if I'm going to be realistic about it, it just sucks. Like, I I love what I do. And it's just my favorite day is Wednesday. That's our rehearsal day. And I know whatever the heck is going on in the week, it doesn't matter because that's my therapy, right? We get in it, we get into the characters. I get to be with the kids and I get to see them grow and I get to be a part of their growth in the world. I'm so ADD.
No, but like where you were going is like it's not just. It's funny that you're saying this is not just like
right.
You're doing this passion that you love.
It doesn't.
There's
happen.
also a marketing business side of it.
Right.
That's what your dad was saying.
Right.
And it's funny as you're sitting here, I'm going, yeah. I mean, even as an athlete, it doesn't matter. I used to see it on the LPGA, or I didn't play on the LPGA, but I was out there and like there were kids just like, oh, I'm good at sport and. There's a whole business side of networking, marketing, even in the business I'm doing. Like we can teach all this, like I'm a great coach, but if I don't make money, if I don't
How do you survive?
Like, we have to survive. And
how do you provide for your child?
That's what your dad was saying.
How do you eat?
What a gift your dad gave you.
Oh, it was incredible. And at the time, like I'm a petulant teenager, right?
Yeah, Dad.
Like, Dad, you're such a things you shouldn't say.
Yeah.
But at the time I thought he was just a big old jerk. And now I really welcome that. And as I went through my, parents know a lot more than we do because they've lived life.
Yeah.
And he
was on it.
He knew it.
Yeah.
And he was okay being the jerk at that point because he said, I know you're going to survive, but you got to take my advice.
Interesting. So the advice that I hear you saying to those listening is like, number one, there might be some parents that know more than you at the moment of like schooling or going to college, but also there's more than just your skill as a performer or artist that you have to, you have to
cultivate.
You have to cultivate.
But now, to clarify, my dad had no ulterior motive. He was not a stage dad. He didn't want me to he didn't want to get famous off of me. He had his own living and, he was just concerned. But there are stage parents,
Yes, we know that.
Which we have experienced.
Okay, so you go to college.
Sorry, I'm all over.
No,
all
you're
the time.
Not. It's all good. And then listen, this is how we narrow into our journey to learn.
I like this.
I like this.
This is fun.
But what's funny?
I didn't realize we're going to be in such a small room.
I know. We're also in like a black room with
no, I like
clouds
it.
above us, and we're like in our little.
But I feel like we're in like my little black box theater. It's private. It's intimate.
It's so cool. I'm just going to share this. I just got off the phone with my aunt yesterday, who I did the interview like I just shared, and she's a tough little Italian aunt, 100 years old, and she said. She agreed to this interview, and she said to me, I have to say, Wendy, I just loved the interview. And I go, why? And she said, you really triggered memories that I haven't thought about, and it brought such joy to revisiting different parts of my life I really haven't had time to, I don't think of. And it brought joy to my day, my month. And I was like, I almost cried because this, even though like you're saying you're going all over the place, I feel like
I always am.
It's okay. Like I think this part of like just this conversation, it's like it triggers, it's like popcorn, like
right.
So I don't care
it's
that
a
we
go
all. It's a conversation. It's a organic
yeah.
conversation, and I feel like sometimes I listen to podcasts and it's like either super experts that are like not where I'm living, or it's so programmed in the questions, and I feel like the gold is coming in our conversation of like what got you where you are and what makes why I have you here is I see such magic that you bring to the world in your little studio, and that's why I'm having you here, just to confirm. I don't care that we go all over the place.
I know. I will.
So tell me this, like, so you did you go to college?
I did.
And where did you go to college, and what were you doing in college?
I transferred from 2 different places, but I focused on musical theater. And then it was odd because when I was in musical theater, you always have to have a voice teacher, and that's necessary, 100%. You want to do music, you got to be great at voice acting and dancing, movement, especially now. Before it was more kind of movement for the stage, but now it's really dance too as well. Like everybody has to just be at the top of their game. But then I found this at Palm Beach Atlantic, and that's where I ended up to finish out my college years. And I was able to like cultivate some real beautiful classical work as well. And there's a foundation of vocals that allow you to have that classical work and be able to present a song in that manner. But it's all, I'm a soprano, I'm a mezzo, I'm an alto. It's all about the ear training, and you should be able to, if you see somebody who can do all that, you cultivate that. And my teacher did that for me. And I learned so much from that, because she was like, you're musical theater, but I really think that you should do this too. So why don't we do both tracks? And so she gave me a lot of opera, a lot of classical stuff, just so I could get the balance of that training. And I find that it seeps into some musical theater stuff as well. So everything's connected in some way.
Yeah.
Even though you can't explain it all the time.
Is this how you got to Florida? Like, it's from going to school?
My cousin was here.
Okay.
She's my best friend in the entire world. She is my dear little Stacy, I call her. Well, that's her name. I don't call her that, but she was down here. I was transferring schools, and my aunt said they lived here. In like an hour north. And she said, Abby, why don't you come down to Florida? And I was like, yeah, right. Like I'll ever live in Florida. Because
I know that comment.
Yes, exactly. So, because I also lived in New York, but that was post all of that. And then I was like, oh, I need to go back to Florida. But I was like, yeah, right, Aunt Karen. Okay. And rolling my eyes, if you can't hear the rolling of the eyes in the audio, my dad goes, you're not sure what to do. You're transferring. Go down. What do you have to lose? A weekend with your cousin? That doesn't seem like a problem to me. So you don't have to say yes to the school, but you still get a weekend with your cousin. So just go. And so he sent me down here, and you know, the advantage of PBA is they put you on the intercoastal. Like your first room is on the water. You see all these yachts. You're looking at Palm Beach. It's very enticing. But for me, it worked. It's not for everybody. I didn't.
So you literally came down here, not really, obviously rolling your eyes like, I'm never going to do it.
Not coming.
And in a weekend, it was like your place.
Yeah, it was wonderful. And it was, for me, being with my cousin, that was a beautiful
Let me go back to this. I want to say, like, your dad was like, you never know. And part of the Live Your June way of being, we call it soul instigating. You're instigating your soul.
Yes.
And it's like those moments that change your life. I don't know if that changed your life per se, but like it brought you somewhere, brought you to that teacher. And I feel like some people have a little, if they don't have the exact answer, they won't take that little step. How do you speak to that? Just like anything that pops in your mind about your life that you like took a chance, but you had no idea of the answer.
Oh, well, that was my dad's whole thing.
Huh.
My dad's whole rule for me.
Yes.
You're not allowed to stay in Ohio.
Ooh.
You have to go somewhere else. And I was like, don't you love me? You know, like as teens, we think different. You know, it's just, you get all emotional. He said, you have to go experience the world. And I did. My first part was college in Missouri at his alum. It didn't work for me. It was wonderful for him. He met my mom there, and they had a great relationship, brought up 3 kids, you know, not together now, but we're all here, so.
So then Missouri.
And then he said, you have to live. So then I went back to Ohio, then I went to New York, then I came down here, and he just said, you have to go experience things. But what I loved about that moment was he wasn't so tied to having his baby, like his daughter, being at his side all the time. And I think we see that a lot right now. And I can't imagine saying that to somebody, like to one of my parents, like, oh yeah, my dad said, you're not allowed to live here. You are leaving this state. You're going. You got to do what you got to do.
So that's so funny. I experienced complete different. Like my dad was like, come home.
Hold me close.
Italian.
Hold you close.
Like, I'll find you a job. And I was the only out of 6 that was the wanderer. Like I was like, I didn't know. I felt empty inside. Like, I was like, where do I go? I'm going to San Francisco. I went to Park City. Then I did what I was supposed to do and got back home and taught in Harlem. But that gift that your father gave you is
amazing.
And it's not to say my dad's wrong. It's just you cannot learn about yourself until you go. Like what your dad was saying.
But that's more of the Italian culture. It's keep the family close, and the culture has come down with me. But he did give me that gift because he was just like, no,
that's pretty cool.
You are. I don't know what he saw in me. He probably still can't articulate that, to be honest. But he's like, no, you are not. My brother's working for his company. You know, I mean, it's just, it's different. And so I think I took that because you apply it to everything, every kid you see now, or I have.
Yeah.
Every kid has a different path, right? Yeah. So you can take your whole family and go, you have family of 6, right? Does every person need to stay right in that environment? Or is one meant to go somewhere else? Is one meant to go elsewhere? What is each kid's personality designed to do in their world?
Well said. Because everybody's different, wired differently. And if they're pushed in one way, they're actually shutting off something inside of them. Okay, so that's cool about your dad.
He's the coolest guy ever.
I can't wait to meet him.
I hope you can meet him soon. We'll make him come down.
I would. Okay, so you go to Palm Beach, whatever. What was your biggest struggle in the journey to be before you're working your company? What's your biggest struggle before you started your company where you got it going in a direction? What would you say one of your biggest struggles?
I actually think the biggest struggle is as Italians, we're caretakers, right? The moms, we're taught, the girls are taught to cook and take care. And my dad, amazing provider. Like, I never wanted for anything. Nobody in the family did. And that's a beautiful thing, and he took pride in that. But then if you're going to send your kid out into the world, it's like, well, how do I do both? Right? So it's hard. It's difficult. Get me back on track. Right?
Just the struggle, like knowing that you have this passion that your dad said, go out in the world. Because, I mean, no one told me to go out in the world. I just went out.
Right. You just
But I struggled,
But that's brave, too.
But I struggled with, because I was going after this passion, but I wanted to have 6 kids as a woman. And it's like, and then when I went home, I felt like I was back at when I was 10. And I was like, who am I in this journey?
Yeah.
And I'm asking you, how did you, either take a stand or be like, this is the direction I'm going? Was there some moment a defining moment that goes, oh, this is why I did all this to get here? Nothing clicks in, or a struggle.
So. I think it was more organic. It's the struggle is really, where do I end up? Where do I go? Transferring universities, going back home for a little bit. And I think maybe that was the defining moment too. Now that I think about it, I transferred from Missouri back to, I was going to come down when I decided I was going to come down to Florida. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess this is, how cool would it be to go to school with my cousin and still get educated? But in that time when I had a hiatus between universities, my dad was like, you're not sitting at the house. Go find something to do. So I managed to find, through people from my mom's contacts, because she's very creative. She's a singer, and she just loves to do all that stuff. And she's very good at all of it. Somebody in her contacts was directing The Sound of Music, and they needed an assistant. And I was like, I'm in. Yay! Yay! It's fun. And so I did that, and I watched her do it, and I watched some things that I thought could have been different. But, when we're still teenagers, I think I was 18 at that point, or 19. I was like, we all think we know everything. But it got my wheels turning, and oh, this is really cool. And then I kind of put the directing thing to the side for a while. I finished my university time, and then ended up teaching. I ended up performing a little bit, and just...
So you were teaching, you didn't like performing? No.
No.
So more teaching, always.
I think for me, when you're performing, you have to really market yourself, right? So you market yourself, but I think sometimes it's too much. It feels like everything's about me, right? And then you have to be cutthroat. You have to be, in our day, I don't know if it's like that now, but you just had to really cut people out and just really be laser focused and just jump in and push people out of the way. And I didn't also like the 8 shows a week thing. It just became robotic to me. I started working regional theater, nothing fancy or anything, but I had been teaching as well. And I was like, I just get so much more out of being with the kids and watching them grow. And why that's not a bad thing to give them. That gave me life. Give them a foundation. Because serving myself was not doing anything for me. And I learned that very early on. I didn't try to go out and audition for a bunch of tours.
Again, goes back to like knowing what fulfills you, what brings you joy, because even though you have a gift to go a certain way, doesn't mean that that's the path. You can use the gift in a different way.
Right.
So you do all obviously like love to help people. I clearly see that. You're an organizer. So
I had to learn that, by the way.
How did you come about, like, okay, you said you started to work a little bit at someone asked you to either do a performance or something here in Florida. How did you say, oh, I'm going to run my own company? Like, because I think running your own company, it sounds all great and it looks so easy. 12 years you've been doing it. So obviously you're doing something right. You started off small, but like, what was it that said, yeah, this is it. I'm doing it. And how did you imagine it? And right at the beginning?
Well, I was working at a place when I was 19. Somebody had seen in me, I had just moved down, and she said, can you come teach? And I was like, I've never taught piano. She's like, but you're really good at it, right? So I started doing that. So that's how that whole thing. And then as you start teaching, you're like, oh, wow, I'm growing as a performer. And then when you get to, oh, crap, I lost the train of thought again.
No, you're talking about how you're getting to your company, how you got to like.
So then I worked for another company up in Jupiter, which was Atlantic Arts, and that was, I heard the podcast you did with Elizabeth, which was beautiful.
Oh my gosh, yes, she's amazing.
I miss her.
And you know what's funny? Again, you were sort of similar too. Like, I've never done a podcast before, and she was so nervous to do it, and I was like, you have such a gift. And this is why you're here again.
Oh, thank you.
Because you are changing children. You are helping parents. So I need to know this journey of how you figured out to open this company.
Right.
That's what we want.
So when it was a defining moment for me at Atlantic Arts, when they asked me to do some of the camp stuff, and I would be they had everything separated. So there was a voice class the kids would go to. There was a dance class the kids would go to. And so I was the voice. And I just kept watching them going, there's so much more that can happen. And they'd be like, oh, yes, I'm a tree in the background. I'm like, for Friday's performance or whatever performance date it was.
I was a window. Josie laughs at me. So it made me feel awful.
Yes. So I
wish I had you.
Exactly. So I think what I do is, that was those times at Atlantic Art that were amazing. I met amazing people. I actually met Elizabeth through them and kept in touch randomly throughout the years when I had questions or whatever, because she's amazing too. But like, when I decided what the concept was going to be, and for my academy, and I just thought, I don't need to compete with anybody. I think I see something differently. And my big thing is, I don't really want parents to come to my academy, pay me all this money, and not that that's like a lucrative, like nobody get any idea that this is a lucrative business, but like, I don't want parents spending their hard-earned money to see their kid in the background as a tree, right? And I think that's my biggest thing. So what I like to do now is I take a musical like we're doing now, Shrek.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody would cast your 11-year-old or the 12-year-olds or the 9-year-old. Our Shrek is 9 years old and she's rocking it, but nobody would really cast that in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's a development stage for them and it gives them the opportunities. So the casts are 10 to 18. And so I just thought ages, I'm sorry, wait, not 10 to 18, 10 to, I lost my train of thought again.
Yeah, but you do all different ages depending on
It's a lot of ages depending on the performance.
But
so
I have lots of questions. Well, first of all, I love that you say that because what I see in kids these days, I happen to have a kid that's very confident.
mm-hmm.
I also happen to be a single mother that had flexibility so she was able to travel and she was adapting and through schools and different things that has given her confidence. I see a lot of her friends or people around her that they're hesitant and they could come from a bigger family or the parents just are both working. And I see the gift that you do going back to me as a window in my I'm not kidding, like 3rd, 4th grade window. It was Wizard of Oz. My friend's Dorothy. And I had a string.
You had it on
I had
you.
a string with a window and I was dressed in black.
Yeah.
So that's my memory of being on stage. And I was like, I will never do this again. And probably, I never put this together on my own journey of writing, of why I hate being on stage to speak, which I'm getting better at 52. But, that shut me off and didn't give me confidence to even be part of something. So when you say, I see something different and I don't want a kid to be a tree, and I see all the different abilities and you make them shine, I mean, I want to cry. And yes, my daughter happens to have some parts that are good, but that the whole performance is magical because you're giving not only the gift to the children, but you're allowing the parents to see what they're capable of.
Well, I think that's the biggest perspective.
Chills. Thank you for giving me goosies.
I'll take it.
What's the girl on American
Idol? Which one?
Perry. What's her name? She's always like, I've got goosies.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Sorry. Water.
It's okay. So it is a magical gift that you see that.
I think the issue is, how do they get to that place, right? How does a kid know that they're meant to be a performer if they don't try it out? So if I could move from the musicals to the camps for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So the musicals are huge, but the camps are also like a mini version of that. Mm-hmm. So parents don't really understand what the kids are capable of. Mm-hmm. And from your experience, you'll understand. I don't let parents in the academy. And it's not because I don't love the parents. It's because their kids need to come into a place where they can explore and create. But the minute, and this was early on in my days that I learned this, the minute the kids come in or the parents come in, the kids shift from my kid to their kid. Mm-hmm. So they could be completely a different kid. Oh, blah, 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 creating with me. The parent walks in and whatever's happening in the home, it's a totally different perspective.
It is 100%.
And the kid is not the kid I know. And I'm like, wait, but I want to bring that out of them.
So what made you, what drew awareness to that? Like you said, there was an experience that made you think, I've got to keep the parents separate.
Oh, yes. Hang on. I'm going to go to my list for a second because I did have, I don't want to make sure.
That's a big point because actually, when I came to your studio, but when I met you through Elizabeth at Performance Arts Studio.
No, I met you. Yes, you're right.
When
from
Josi
Elf.
was doing Elf.
I met you through
and
Jerica.
You guys were talking. And Elizabeth was leaving. I didn't know, what do I do with this? I have this new actor. I don't even know what she does. And so I was like, let me try, Abby's Performance Studio. And we're waiting outside, and it's very clear. No parents inside. And I read the list of commitment and how I had to say if we're going to miss anything. And this is actually a huge conversation that I want to be part of this podcast.
Ooh.
Because
keep going.
you are very clear on setting the boundaries, and I didn't.
It's hard when you're a first-time
I didn't
parent.
get the whole like door shut, window, like black.
You're out.
Like you don't see anything. But go back to why this is. Why did you come to this conclusion that this is how you had to run it?
When the kids change, the kids are so different. And we have moved into a different world of parenting where the parents are hovering so much that it actually inhibits the child. And in my experience, mom dropping me off was great. Like I could explore. I made mistakes. I was stupid. I did dumb stuff. But there was always somebody to say, Abby, you did something dumb. Let's talk about it. I mean, not really in that in those words, but it was like, let's work through this. But I feel like nowadays it's so hovering that the kids are told what to do at every minute of their day. And they need a break from that because kids need to explore. And they can't explore if you're there because they're so concerned about what's going on at home. And everybody's home is different. And good, bad, it doesn't matter. But they need to come here and know exactly what they're expecting. And I think that helps for the parents to understand that the kids are going to be safe. But you can't come in until the final performance.
I think it's, I mean, I never really got it and the first time. And then I'm like, there's a lot of things.
Sinister.
There's no, but because it seemed you really set the stage. I mean, I was a new mom, so then you had people that had been there for many years, and they're coming in, and they're more like not loose, but they're obviously trust the scenario. And so I was like, what is this? This is like if you're not there 10 minutes before, you are late. Just all the way you set the stage, and I think. I taught volleyball this year as assistant, and I came in halfway, like 4 games in at our school we were in, and it was 5th and 6th, and that is what's missing. Like this is what the year is for. What are we doing this game for? Why? What is if we finish the season and we do this, we're successful. I don't think there's these clear boundaries of what's expected. Also, it's like you expect people to show up on time and work hard. And I used to go, she's such a hard ass. But I actually think it's teaching me as a parent the importance of, I already know commitment, but like.
It's different when you're a parent though.
But I already know commitment from, like I parent that way. However, what happens is it's like one kid's loose, or one parent's loose, that it affects the whole team, the whole performance of how you operate. So anyway, I think it's beautiful. Oh. I mean, we were a little bit like, oh my God, we're late. We'd be driving, but there is something beautiful.
I'm not going to apologize for that. You should be like that, but yes.
No.
But at the end of the day, we all have to show each other grace, right? Like sometimes the bridge closes and you're up into we're in big weird construction right now. So at some point I have to go, okay, we got to give some grace. But at some point, if you don't set that boundary, then kids are missing 5 or 6 rehearsals and they don't get what they're paying for. And it's not about the payment, but it slightly is because it's like, why are you going to waste I would never want somebody to be like, I paid for this program and they didn't get anything out of it, right?
Yeah, but I think it's teaching commitment. I think
more
it's
about
staying
that,
in it when it's hard. I mean, we had an incident the other day where Josie really didn't feel good. We went all the way to you. Were we right or wrong to leave? I mean, it was the only time I've ever missed. But I feel like there was the grace. Like there was a moment of grace. But like Josie would never, because she knows. But I think it's not there today in anything that kids do. And I really think it helps them to, like I say it all the time to Josie, you're part of her performance and she expects you to show up on time. That doesn't mean you're not doing that other places, like school, like making your bed. So you're to me, the way you are has really helped me to help my daughter see it in different ways in her day. So my question is, when did you start that policy? And like,
Now I can go to my list.
Yeah. Was it hard to get going? What's the friction the struggle in that?
There's a lot of struggle.
Yeah. So anyway.
Because I care so much.
Yeah.
I care about the people. I care about the kids. I mean, I wouldn't do this if I didn't see something in the kids and that they were growing and there was some kind of foundation that they were getting. I did learn a lot from parents and getting to that point, because if you don't set a boundary, then everything's just out in the ether. Like, anybody can do whatever they want. But we live in a world where everything is so overscheduled. And again, we go back to the hover parenting, but that's not the whole issue. But like, everybody's so concerned about, well, is my daughter doing this? Is my son doing this? And and it goes on and on and on until college, right? Whereas sometimes they need a space to create. But if you don't demand that if you're going to sign up for this, they're not going to have the space to create, they'll never grow. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it's the commitment where it's like, yeah, some days are just going to be really, some days you're going to have something that goes bad in school, but you know what? Suck it up and deal with it. Liv for the, Liv, who was Willy Wonka, she started at 4. She had, she's 11 now. She's been in all of the shows, almost all, I think all but 2. And she has had to perform with strep throat. Mm-hmm. And I think there was one time she had a fever, one different show.
And this is the lesson you were teaching my daughter the other day. Believe me, I get it.
This is it. And I was more easy on Josie the other day than I
know, but
normally
I had a conversation about this.
Like, you did?
Yeah.
Okay,
I said, maybe next time you choose different. Like, maybe you just sit there. Like, if you want to do this. So it's not that I don't see you, Yeah. Anyway, but I think.
But most of the time, it's just kind of like, I think nowadays everybody gives the kids the opportunity to make the decision. But isn't it our job to help them grow and go through that discomfort? Because sometimes it just stinks, but that's life. That's never going to change. It's always going to happen. So what do? We just go home and we hide, or, oh, I don't feel well today. Oh, my stomach hurts. But then all of a sudden you're with your friends and you rally. And kids are so much more capable of what we as caretakers or parents believe they are.
Aren't we all more capable?
We all are. Yes and yes.
Yes and yes. I just love it. I think you're teaching me. I think you're teaching my daughter and everybody you touch. Like, on top of your skill of doing what you do, which, again, she's the only one. That's the other option. That's the other magical thing about you, is she doesn't have like a staff. You're literally running this academy, and you do a production, and I'm watching you like. You're doing Shrek, and I don't know how many characters are in Shrek, but you have 10 people.
There's a gazillion.
And you make it I know, but you make it happen. You're like, I can do this. So to me, like, where does that – is that all your experience? Where does that – it's like I feel like you're a little gritty and – like, where does that come from?
You figure it out, right?
You just figuring it out.
Well, I think that comes down to commitment. I mean – I'm committing to you as a parent. I'm committing to your child. Okay, so, well, the schedule's really tight right now. We only have 10 kids. How am I going to make this work? Well, the only way we're going to make it work is if I sit down, take time and study it and go, okay, I think we can work this out. It might be a little tight, but let's see what we can do. And I think that's the biggest lesson, because a lot of people quit. They're like, oh, we only have this many kids. I'll give you an example. Tonight, we have a kids' night out at the academy. Everybody's so busy, right? This goes to the grace where you just go, okay, everybody's busy. They just didn't see the advertising emails, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And we have a kids' night out, and I'm like, we only had 5 kids at the beginning of the week. Now we're at like 20. So sometimes it just takes a breath, right? And that goes back to the mindfulness and going, okay, what do we do there? And do I just keep pushing, or do I give up? And you don't give up until you have to give up. Because what are you going to do? Let people down?
100%. Even me. Like if I I just did a journaling workshop. Like, okay, we had 3 people. I'm showing up the same as if I had 100.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is, we're not taught that always, or we're not teaching that to our children. And I love that, because how we show up, it's magical, whether it's 5,
Mm-hmm.
because we're coming 100%. We're all in.
Right.
I love that, what you're just saying.
Well, and I learned that, and I will say this, I learned that from 2 places, from my gym, and health is really important, especially if you're going to perform.
Mm-hmm.
You want to dance on stage, you can't be obese. I'm sorry. There's a celebration of that sometimes in society right now, but if you're really going to be able to do those dance steps, you have to be healthy, because number one, our brain can't take not having vegetables and all the protein and all those macros that are important. But how can you sustain such a long working life if you're not being healthy?
And I say this, and it's funny, because even Josi that was ill, we're sorry we're going back to this.
No, we can keep this is important to me too.
Because I
didn't know what to do. I was like,
well, I didn't know what to do, because she really was throwing up. She felt sick.
I almost gave
but
her
I
drink veggies sometimes.
Well, and then I don't know,
do?
like in reality, like if I go back in time, I probably could have pushed, and I was pushing, showing up.
Mm-hmm.
But then I should have pushed a little more. And I don't know if she has anxiety because she's leaving school. I don't know what's going on. There's something going on, because she keeps telling her my belly. But my point of the matter is, and now I lost my thought. Oh God, what were we just talking about?
We're talking about being healthy, making sure
healthy.
that you're
And
taking
I
care of
said
yourself.
part
And that was
of-
the question about
part
Josi, because we weren't
of-
sure.
She's going through puberty and all these things.
I did ask that, yes.
Yes, but part of her thing, I said, you need sleep, like all the basics. And it doesn't, and this is what, as parents, our job also is. Not only to show up you on time, but to show up with a child that's like well fed and rested, and so they can perform and so they can have fun. And I feel, yes, she's going through and goes back to like overbooking. I mean,
that's the biggest
I get
issue.
told I say no too much. This girl has to get healthy.
She has a
to
lot
perform.
going on still. And if you say
she,
no, keep
yeah.
going.
So I think right to you saying this about yourself, like what taught you to be all in is putting yourself first,
Mm-hmm.
putting the, having the grit, having healthy, eating healthy. I'm trying to get my daughter to see the value in that, because she can't perform at her best if she's not.
No.
None of us can. Okay. I want to ask more about you before we end, because I so am grateful for who you are and what you bring to that academy that seems so small but so magical.
I'm going to keep it small, by the way.
I love it.
It's the foundation.
Who is your biggest influence in your life? Who made the biggest impact?
Are we talking in the last couple of years or my whole life? Or
Whatever pops in your head.
Well,
who has helped you become who you are right today?
All right, I know this is going to sound cheesy, but it's not a love thing. It's my husband. Mm-hmm. He's in finance, and he has a lot of degrees, and he's an economist, and there's just so many things that he's brought to my creative side. And so sometimes I'll come home and be like, blah, 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 and as artists, we just don't get to the point right away because we're going through all these emotions. And then he will just come in and go, okay, X, Y, and Z. And he literally can see through it and go, da, 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 da. And then when we started dating, it was just kind of like, I would talk about it and he would just say, well, why don't you think about it this way? And I was like, I never would have known that. How do you know that? And he said, it's because of my training. Like, he has his degrees and whatnot. But he's very smart, but he's also a good balance for me. And my business took off when we started dating because of him, because I was willing to listen. That's the key, though. A lot of people think they know everything, and this is what I'm doing, and I'm doing it right, and this is what I believe, right? But I was just kind of like, well, this is what I believe, but what do you have to say? And you have to be open. Sometimes we are not always right. Even the other day in rehearsal, I yelled at a kid. Not yelled, I reprimanded a kid. And then Miss Cadence, who's my assistant, I looked at her and she goes, and she shook her head at me, and I said, oh, crap. He wasn't doing something wrong. So I went over and I had to apologize to the kid. And I said, I'm so sorry. I should not have done that. I should have found out more information first. But it was just walking into a system that or a situation where you think is something crazy. And so even I still have to be vulnerable and open. And I did apologize to the child because I was wrong.
Yeah.
And we don't always have to be right to grow.
Such good points there, Abby. Like owning our stuff as a adult, so important, because I do it all the time with Josie.
Yeah,
and
we
then
always mess
also just being open. And I'm so glad that your husband has brought that in your life.
He's been really great.
He's your other half. But I also, Josie was like, Abby's changed since she's gotten married. Abby's calmer. Abby's
really? I'm
know.
calmer. Ooh, can we tell him that?
I don't know. She's like, she's just a little different. That's what she said to me.
I think I found my balance, maybe.
Maybe.
That's really good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah,
See, this is what I'm saying. We're never always right. Kids are so observant, and they sometimes know more than we do. And we have to also listen to them.
I love that. Yes, that is true.
I could talk for 5 more hours.
What do you think are the 3 characters that make you so special?
Wait.
Your characteristics.
Characteristics?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think vulnerability is a big thing. Mm-hmm. But also knowing the balance of what I'm able to handle. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's an actual characteristic. I don't know what the word for that is.
I don't know, but I think I make sense of it, like knowing how much you can take on.
Knowing what my balance is. Mm-hmm. Balance, vulnerability, and then, the third one. I have to put it in a third one.
I mean, I have a lot of words for you, but I'm not going to say
I have so many.
I don't know. Like, I'm just going to throw out some that I see in you.
Tell me.
First of all, creativity is like
yes.
out the wazoo. Determination.
Yeah, maybe the grit.
I just think you have a lot of grit to do at the level you do it at. And you're consistent. Like, you're super consistent in how you show up for everybody.
Thank you for saying that. I actually did have a note about consistency, and I just didn't get to it. And I actually have an athletic
thing.
Sure. So my house, moving in with this basketball family, they're not all basketball players, but they're obsessed with basketball. And Dan Hurley said, he's the coach. Okay, let me give the backstory. My husband he went to UNC for his undergrad. His son is now accepted into it from Florida, which is a big thing. Going out of state is hard. And so it's been a basketball, since whenever it started this year. And then they played UConn or something happened. I don't know. Don't quote me on all of this. But Dan Hurley said, wait, I love this part. I'm going to quote because I love it. I want it. But we spend a lot of time really focusing on the parents. Are they going to be fans of their son, or are they going to be parents? Are they going to hold them accountable, have an expectation that when something goes wrong, it's not the coach's fault, or that their son's going to work harder, he's got to do more, and he has to earn his role? I might have read that a little wrong, but I think I love that what he said is that's how I kind of apply it to what we do. Because it's all about what we do as the leaders in these kids' lives. And so do we just let them make the choices, or do we push them to do something better?
And I think we need good leaders. And that is why I, again, have you on. I think we're missing leaders in the world today. I think we're missing, people that walk the walk. And I feel you do, even though sometimes I'm like, you saw my text. I'm like, come on, Abby. But you're teaching me.
True.
You're challenging. You're challenging me. Was that the right move or not? I don't know.
But the other moment could I have been defensive and been like, how dare you speak to me like this? Because there's a lot of people who are emotionally charge, right? So we have to have that mutual.
And it's
Sorry,
also
I've thrown
like
someone else there.
having no, it's also having a vulnerable conversation when it's hard, that we see things different and we're all learning. And the other day, like I had a conversation because you challenged me as a parent. I had a conversation with Josi again because of that. So yes, maybe it was right or wrong why we didn't go to practice, but she has practiced double time because she knows she has to show up, and she wants to show up for you. Like she
know
really
she
in her
does.
heart she does.
I know she does.
So,
but I was very impressed with the text in the morning because, sometimes you have to let things settle and you go, I think I made, at least my experience in that was, I said something firm and honest. It wasn't, I hope it wasn't disparaging against you, but I wasn't sure. Does Josi have a separate phone? Because I was texting you and I was like, oh my God. When your response, I was like, did Josi see that? That was for Wendy.
That's for me.
Okay.
But I'm pretty open with Josi, so she knows.
Okay. So I just kind of let, at some point we have to sit back and say, just let everybody sleep on it.
Yep. But at 10 a.m. or 10 p.m., she wanted to text you. No, 10 p.m. she wanted to text you and tell whatever and set the stage of why. Okay. Where she was, and I said, let's not text so late. So the minute she got up, she got the iPad and she wrote you.
She did. She said, Miss Abby, this is Josi.
Yes. So she was going to write you at that night. And then I said, why don't you let it was 10.
Good.
It was 8
let
p.m.
Sleep.
I said, let everybody sleep, and you text her in the morning, be responsible. So like, who knows what was right or wrong, but it's teaching her. The moment is teaching her.
And I thought what she texted was beautiful because I thought what you taught her was good. Just wait. I mean, sometimes I don't even get out until, and I think that's the things that most people don't understand. Once you guys leave, I'm still there.
I know.
And at some point, I'm like, oh, Todd, what are you? He's like, are you coming home? Right. So we have to still have that balance of family. And I thought what she said was very mature. It was emotionally mature because she said, what can I do? Thank you. She thanked me for not killing her, right? Because we have this joke, I'm going to kill you, right? But that was from my Italian grandmother that we do. And anybody who's not listening, I'm doing this Italian gesture that, how do you even explain that?
You are truly a dedication to children, and you are all in. Like you are all in, and I know no one sees what you do on the back end, and that I wish we could have a little camera so we actually could see how much work you put into our children, and that is not always the case. So
you don't want to see any of that, though.
No, but I mean, like, I don't know what you do, and I know what you're doing, and you're always thinking of how to make things better. But you're also pushing
for the kids.
What's the imprint that you want to leave? Kids, parents, whatever. Like, what is the imprint that you want to leave in the world right now in your life?
I think the imprint is more about commitment and parents. I think the message is more to parents, because if you let the kids come with me or anybody, they're so much more capable than we believe them to be, because it's a parent's job to nurture and, keep them in the womb, almost like cradle them and not let them feel any harm. But the imprint I want to leave.
But is that the parent's job?
It's not. But
that's what's happening.
I see that a lot in society. So I think the imprint I want to believe is that we're not going to do that. That's not where, if you want to do that, good. Don't come to me, please. Like, I'm not going to buy into that. I buy into letting the kids know that they have a net. Okay, think about a net, right? A net is here at the bottom. They can fall. I'll be the net that catches you, but you got to let me push you until you fall. When you fall, I'll know it, and then we catch you. We work through whatever's happening. But how do you know what's going to happen if you don't let them try? And I think that's the biggest, for me, that's the biggest thing. And that's why I don't let parents in the academy. Even though I love you guys, like I would hang out with you guys all the time.
So you want the imprint to be Say that again. Like if a parent is taking, how do you want them to receive the gift that you give people?
Trust that your kids are more capable than you realize.
Love, love, love that. So, okay. So if anybody, I could go on and on, by the way.
I know, we could spend here
I
like
love
3
it.
more
We
hours.
could-
This is so much
But
fun.
we are going to go have lunch.
I know.
So
We need food.
we're going to put down all your information, but like just give us a little background of what, if someone's listening and they're like, oh, I want to work with this girl. What exactly you give. I know you do Friday kids night and all that stuff, but like you do
like what
piano,
what we
teaching.
provide.
Yes, what do you provide?
Private lessons in voice, piano, and acting. The musicals, which if you want to go into like Bach or any kind of prep, that's really the place that preps you. You don't need a class. You just go through a show circumstance or like a show situation, and then keep going with our troupe, and then you'll survive. There's also the camps, Monday through Friday. It's all separate. It's a week. So on Monday you come, you don't know the theme, you have fun, everybody gets to perform by Friday, and it's amazing what the parents learn by Friday. And then etiquette, I always do etiquette. I just haven't had a chance to
We'll sign up.
dedicate for etiquette right now because we've been just trying to keep up with all the programs because it's been great. There is a dance program that comes into the academy, and it's called Just Dance, and they're in our space, and they do a great job with like acro, jazz, tap, ballet.
And she also holds really good parties sometimes for people. I think
Oh
you have
yes,
one
birthday
tonight.
parties.
Yes, or
I have
something.
so many. I sometimes forget how to say it all in one. Like I need to learn a blip.
Anyway, if you want a solid human to work with your child, I highly recommend, and you'll be learning yourself as a parent because I'm learning. So I thank you so much, Abby. You are a gift, and I just hope we have more leaders for young humans like you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Love you so much.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.